it's kind of crazy. Like my whole religious experience, my whole religious journey is I prefer to spend time in the most religious places on earth. I think they're the best places to be. Romania is it's the opposite of Dubai. It's extremely Orthodox Christian. It's actually the most Christian country in the world. So I spend most of my time between Dubai, which is, very overtly Muslim, and then I come back to Romania, which is very overtly Christian, but both of them have strong faith. And I think a lot of the problems with the world today is that the West is lacking faith, and I don't like being around. I don't like being in agnostic or atheistic societies anymore. I try to avoid them if possible. But like I said, my own personal journey, I think it's taking a little bit of time. I know people often ask me, what religion are you? And it's hard for me to answer that specifically. When I am in Dubai or near a mosque, I feel an energy that I'm at peace with and I enjoy.
Wow.
But I can't say it's not true also about particular churches here in Romania. So for now, all I know is I need to be a good person, and that's what I'm trying to do. But I stated it in the last podcast before, people often ask me, which religion when they ask me which religion I am, I make it very clear the religion I have the most respect for is Islam. It's not even close. It has to be. Yeah, it's actually amazing how in many ways, like you're saying, Jesus is one part of it, but in many ways, obviously there's key differences, but in many ways there's a lot of similarities. And it's kind of funny to me, whereas Christianity in the modern world has become such a laughingstock. And it has been, because people don't practice it in any kind of strict way anymore, really. And people say, oh, Islam's so strict. And I say, look, a lot of the rules of Islam are also in the Bible. You're a Christian who's never read it. Like, you've never read your own Bible. You don't know what your own rules are. So it's amazing how similar a lot of the tenets of the two religions are. It's just Islam and Muslims are the last people who take it seriously and practice it in a way it should be practiced and respect it. And that's why I think I first kind of went viral in the Islamic world when I said, look, I have so much respect for Muslims as a whole and the way they view their faith and how seriously they take it. I don't understand why you have these girls who call themselves Christians and they're drinking on Saturday night, meeting boys, doing whatever, and then going to church on the next day. That doesn't feel real to me. Does that make sense? If you don't respect your own house, if you walk into somebody's house and it's a mess, you're not going to worry about making a mess or about cleaning up after yourself or leaving a cup on the coffee table, right? But if you walk into someone's house and it's pristine, then you're going to be very, very concerned about making a mess. And Muslims have so much respect for themselves that people automatically respect their religion as a whole, whereas Christians don't. And this is the thing. We talk about things having longevity. We talk about things lasting into the future, especially religions as a whole. If you become tolerant of everything to the point where like Christianity is now, where they say, oh, we're tolerant. Well, if you're so tolerant, you ignore your own book, then what are you? Do you know where I'm coming from? Absolutely. And that's why I have so much so much respect for the Islamic faith. And that's why it's the one I would bet on. And when I say bet on, I mean, I know Muslims will be here in 100 years. What does Christian mean today? Very little. What's it going to mean in 100 years? Nothing. Let's be honest, right? So that's also another really interesting way to look at it, because then I start to look at things and say, okay, well, you have to choose which religion or which faith you believe is the true faith. But if one faith survives and the other faith is annihilated in real time, that tells you a lot as well, doesn't it? Doesn't that tell you a lot?
Absolutely.
So it's really interesting for me. It's like I have not made any kind of final decisions, etc., but I try and analyze things from a very, very logical perspective. I know God exists, and then you go, okay, God exists, and there's all these different interpretations of God as such, but the only one I see which has a warrior class that people fear is Islam. That's the only one there is. I often say, like, it's kind of strange when you discuss crimes as a whole, right? It's kind of interesting to me that the Western democracies have always sold this lie that you're safe from the government if it's a democracy. Well, that's not true. That's been proven in real time recently, right? Canada's proved that. Australia's proved that. America's proved that. So you're never safe from your government. So a democracy as a whole is no safer to exist under than a kingdom, like the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, or a dictatorship. You're no safer under a democracy. So we can remove that element, the whole idea that they're not democratic, because democracy doesn't provide anything or help anything in terms of safety from the government. But what a democracy does do is cause so much fraction and so much disintegration amongst the society that now you have to not only fear your government, you have to fear the normal people on the street. It's crazy. I read yesterday in LA, they're telling people no longer to wear jewelry. They're advertising on the news, don't wear jewelry.
Wow.
It's incredible. And you go to these poor countries, But because people, like we just discussed, because people are religious, because people have a higher purpose, because they see beyond the material goods of only this world, it's a very safe place to be. I've been to these places and I feel completely, perfectly safe. But I would rather exist in a society where I know the lines and I know the boundaries and I know how I get myself in trouble and not do it than exist in New York City where I can be obeying the law and just be in the wrong place at the wrong time and get a drive-by. You know what I'm saying? These places are absolutely safe, and they're safe because they've maintained the basic structure of family, the basic structure, and the basic structure. That's all it is. When you maintain the basic structure of family, you maintain the basic structure of society.
Yep.
And that's all it is, right? And it's kind of amazing as well in first world Muslim nations, when you maintain the family structure, people also don't want to bring shame upon their family. So the family do a lot of policing. They don't want to have a member of their family that's out there committing crime, right? It's amazing that you have a city which is statistically so safe with all these different people from all these different places, right? And they've done that by just maintaining some kind of social cohesion. You can't have degeneracy all around you 24/7 without degenerating as a person, right? And that's what's happened in the Western world. To a degree, Christianity used to keep the Western world in check, but the Christianity's become so weak it doesn't mean anything anymore. And we're living in a situation now where if you want to go somewhere where you know that you can exist in a wholesome environment, I mean that when you go outside, you're going to see families, man, woman, some children. It's going to be fairly wholesome. You're not going to see any kind of degeneracy. You're not going to see anything strange, anything weird. You're not going to see like any of the crazy crap you would see walking down a street in LA. You're just not going to see it. And Dubai tries very, very hard to prevent degeneracy while also allowing people from all around the world to come live in safety and work hard and make a good life for themselves. And they've done it all under the guise of Islam. I have so much respect for that. It's basically because I think both genders, especially in the West, have forgotten their roles as a whole. Like I understand why most men are not waking up thinking, you know what, I want to have a bunch of kids with a woman. The legal system's out to destroy you. Most of the women aren't going to behave themselves or comply in any kind of manner. Like I had many Muslim friends. I grew up in Luton in England, which is predominantly Muslim. And in England as a whole, London has a lot of Muslims as well. Yeah. And my Muslim friends used to say to me all the time, we'd be out and we'd be walking around and they'd see some girl in a short skirt or whatever. And they say, this is why I need an Islamic wife. Is she a wife? She's naked and drunk at 2 p.m. in the afternoon. Like there's
hold on. Did you mean 2 a.m. or 2 p.m. actually?
p.m. Sorry.
2 p.m. 2 p.m. in the afternoon. Wow.
Just drunk and just, run around acting crazy. And there's a degree of, I mean, hey, I think if you were to ask any man if he'd want an Islamic wife, a wife who complies, who's not going to cheat, who behaves herself, who dresses modestly, maybe not even completely, full burqa, but dresses modestly, behaves appropriately, shows respect. That whole podcast was about how to try and make females basically act the way they've acted for the longest period of human history up until modern times where they've completely forgotten. And I said, well, Islam fixes it because they don't have any of these problems, right? We now live in a world in the West where we've thrown religion away and we've thrown cultural norms away. We've thrown so many things away. And there's a degree of confusion amongst people. People are lost. They really are, men and women. I think a lot of the Western women act so degenerate, and they don't do it because they're evil. They're doing it because they're trying to find happiness. And they can't find it, right? And they think, oh, maybe a new man's happiness, maybe drinking alcohol is happiness, maybe taking drugs is happiness. And if you don't ever find a higher purpose, you're just going to degenerate in a spiral downwards. And that's kind of what's happened. And now we're in a situation where in the West, a man can't find a wife worth having. And people keep saying, oh, men don't want to be men anymore. Men don't want to get married. Would you marry some chick you meet in the club in Miami? like you'd be a fool. Like I won't,